Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. It seems possible for me to imagine that we may see a repeat of what happened in 2020, where Trump, for example, is leading in Pennsylvania by several thousand votes. And he says, there it is. I won Pennsylvania. It's 1 a.m. at this point, and don't let them steal that. And it's not that anyone is stealing anything necessarily. It's that there's stacks of mail ballots that Pennsylvania has not counted yet, because the state law in Pennsylvania is that election workers are not allowed to start opening those envelopes and dealing with those signatures and verifying those ballots until the morning of Election Day. And it's possible, as Kim lays out, maybe we will have some polling error here and the country will get a more decisive result than these election modelers are suggesting. But it also seems possible that it could be extremely close. It could come down to litigation after the fact about rejected ballots. Philadelphia, for example, has a spreadsheet that it posts of names of voters whose ballots have been rejected. They can go and clarify that problem, fix whatever the issue is. And there are about 3,200 people as of this morning on that spreadsheet. So that is also a potential outcome. And we could get litigation all the way up to the Supreme Court, though Monet, I suppose, knock on wood that won't happen.
Yeah, I think that any of these states where they have laws forbidding the unsealing and counting of mail ballots until the polls have closed have helped to worsen this problem. I think in 2020, when we did massively expand mail voting, we should have anticipated the fact that it was going to complicate these counts. It was going to drag out the time frame in which these votes could be tallied. And if you're going to expand the capacity mail voting, as a lot of blue states in particular have committed to do, then that means you have to make sure that those votes are going to be counted in a way that's going to preserve the timeliness of elections. And so I think that we are headed towards a morass with Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and perhaps other states that do put that mandatory delay on mail voting. I do think that at this point, it's been 4 years since the last debacle, and you would hope that voters, including a lot of conservative voters, are more familiar and are able to anticipate the fact that this is likely to happen. So there won't necessarily be as much distrust of the results that comes as an immediate consequence just of the fact that there are late swings in the tally. But frankly, I don't think Donald Trump has done anything to help that process along. He has been talking all along about how he expects to win big in all these states and how any result to the otherwise is going to show that the Democrats cheated, really laying the groundwork there. It's possible that that will end up just being bluster and that if there is a decisive Harris victory that he would concede. But I don't think that he said anything to reassure people that that will be the case. And so I think in the event of a close result, particularly a close Trump loss, we should all buckle up and wait for the litigation and the gnashing of teeth in general for weeks to come.
Kim, we'll give you the last word, but one more note of confidence is the passage by Congress of the Electoral Count Reform Act that governs the counting of the Electoral College on January 6th. I do think that has bolstered the election system somewhat. It makes clear that the vice president's role on January 6th is purely ministerial. It gives precedence to the electoral slate that is certified by the state, whether that's the Secretary of State's job or an election board job. And it says that to object to an electors from a state requires 1/5 of the House and 1/5 of the Senate, which is not a bar that, in my recollection, is even in 2020, Trump's objectors came close to meeting. And so I do think that is one thing to keep in mind, is the system has been strengthened since 2020, even if there is a disputed result.
Absolutely. And I think that those reforms are likely to make it harder for anyone to engage in shenanigans. Although I would just stress again that by the time you get to the point of shenanigans, it's because there was such a long period of time where there was no answer to any of this. And that time was what allowed suspicions to grow and people to begin to feel very worried that something funny has been going on. And if we end up in that situation again this time, I'm doubtful it will happen. But I would like to hope that everyone is pointing the fingers at the right culprits, which are these states. And I'm going to hold Pennsylvania up for top shame that have not spent the past 4 years getting their house in order. We saw in 2020 what happened as a result of this, and they just did nothing. I mean, look, there were how many questions, Kyle? You've written about this how many times about ballots and mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania, and all it would have taken was for the legislature to get together and set the rules of the road, make them very clear in a piece of legislation, also allow for Pennsylvania to do, for instance, the pre-processing of ballots so that we can all get a result in good time, within a day. But how many days did it take in Pennsylvania last time? Was it 4 days? 5 days? So whatever comes out of this election, if that happens again, all of the focus ought to be on the states that are dragging this out and asking them what they need to do to make their electoral system work like the states that do work. And we do know that it can work, and they should be held to that same account.
Thank you, Kim and Monet. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Potomac Watch.